My name is Lauren. I'm 28 years old and I live alone in a tiny apartment in Chicago. 3 weeks ago, I drove 4 hours back to my parents' house for what my mom proudly calls our early Christmas family dinner, even though it happens on Thanksgiving. She said it was more convenient that way. Everyone was off work, everyone could be together. I almost turned the car around twice during that drive, but guilt is a powerful fuel. So I showed up with a homemade pumpkin pie and a smile that didn't reach my eyes. Dinner was loud and chaotic. Football blared from the TV while everyone talked over each other, acting like we were living inside some Hallmark special. I pushed food around my plate, laughed when I was supposed to laugh, and counted the minutes until I could leave. But before we go further, stay until the end to see what one spreadsheet and the word no did to my entire family. Like this video if you believe boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-respect. Comment below, have you ever stopped giving to people who only knew how to take? Subscribe because this channel is for everyone who's done being grateful just to sit there. Then the plates were cleared, and my mom stood up and clapped her hands for attention like she was hosting an award show. She pulled out a bag full of wrapped gifts and started handing them out one by one, going around the table. My dad got a new golf shirt, my uncle got his favorite expensive wine, my sisters got cute personalized things, little bracelets and a spa certificate. People were laughing, saying thank you, hugging her. I waited. Of course, there had to be something for me, too. When the bag was empty and she still hadn't looked in my direction, I finally asked, as casually as I could manage, "Is there one for me?" She didn't even hesitate. "Be grateful you can sit here." The words landed like a slap. Before I could process them, my uncle snorted and added, "Be glad we still remember your name," and the whole table exploded in laughter. I felt my face go hot. My hands trembled in my lap. But I didn't yell, I didn't cry. I just nodded and said, "Good to know." I left early, drove back to Chicago in the dark with that pumpkin pie sitting untouched on the passenger seat. When I got home, I dropped my keys on the counter, threw the pie in the trash, and sat on my kitchen floor staring at my phone. Part of me wanted to send a long message in the family group chat, telling them exactly how they'd humiliated me. But I knew how that would go. They'd say I was being dramatic. It was just a joke. I should be grateful they even invited me. So instead, I texted Mia, my best friend. She called within 30 seconds. I told her everything. The fake smiles, my mom's line about being grateful I could sit there, my uncle's jab about remembering my name. There was a long silence, and then Mia said very calmly, "Len, that's not normal. That's not just rude. That's mean. They don't respect you at all." Hearing someone else say it out loud made something click in my chest. I pulled up my banking app while we were still talking and started scrolling. What I found made my stomach turn. Gym membership charged every month. For my mom. Streaming services under my name that I barely used. Amazon Prime family plan. Random tickets, food orders, Ubers. All those little, "can you put it on your card, I'll pay you back later" moments that never turned into anything. It hit me like a truck. For years, I had quietly been the invisible financial backbone of the family they were so proud of posting about online. They could sit there and make jokes about me, but they had no problem letting my card run on file like I was their personal sponsor. Mia said, "What if you just stopped paying? What if you let them feel what it's like to actually lose you?" The idea scared me and thrilled me at the same time. That weekend, I sat down with my laptop and a notebook and made a list. Mom's yoga and gym membership, Dad's streaming subscriptions and Prime, my little sister's theme park tickets, concerts, gas money, every auto pay that had my name on it and their comfort attached. Then I started canceling. Click. Cancel membership. Click. Turn off auto renewal. Click. Remove card. With every confirmation email that hit my inbox, I felt a little bit lighter. I didn't write some big dramatic announcement in the group chat. I just let the systems they depended on quietly stop. A few days later, my mom called during my lunch break. No hello, no how are you, just, "Lauren, my gym card got declined this morning. Did something happen with the payment?" I swallowed my nerves. "Yeah, I canceled it. You'll need to set it up in your own name." She sounded genuinely offended. You know I go to those classes for my health. You know I count on that. You also know what you said to me at dinner, I replied. I'm done paying for people who can laugh at me like that. She gasped like I'd slapped her. My dad called later that night because the streaming wasn't working. It says we need to update the payment. You must have messed something up. I didn't mess anything up. I just stopped paying. You're adults. You can handle your own bills. He got quiet, then snapped, Family takes care of each other, Lauren. Exactly. That goes both ways. After that, the group chat exploded with passive-aggressive messages about how some people forget where they came from, and money isn't everything, but some folks think it is. I muted the chat. I decided I wasn't going home for Christmas, no matter how many guilt trips they tried. For the first time in my life, I chose not to play the role they'd written for me. And I thought that would be the end of it. I thought they'd sulk, talk trash about me, and eventually move on. I underestimated how much they depended on me, not just for money, but for control. The first real wave hit a few days after I canceled everything. I was at my desk trying to focus on work, half reading the same sentence over and over, when my phone started buzzing nonstop. The family group chat was lighting up like a fire alarm. My mom sent a long paragraph about how some people forget who raised them and how she was deeply hurt that I would attack her health by canceling the gym. She made it sound like I'd taken away prescription medication, not turned off a membership billed to my card. There was a line about yoga being the only thing keeping her sane, as if I were personally responsible for her mental stability. My dad followed with his usual lines about sacrifice and family duty, throwing in that classic, "You wouldn't have your fancy job in Chicago if it weren't for us," something he said any time money came up, like my degree and career were items on a bill I hadn't finished paying. My sisters jumped in with side comments and emojis. One wrote, "Imagine choosing Netflix over your own mom." Ironic considering they used it way more than I ever did. The other sent, "You've changed so much. You used to be nice," followed by a crying emoji and a broken heart. I stared at the chat for a minute, feeling my chest tighten. Then I hit mute again and put my phone face down. 10 minutes later, Mia sent me screenshots from Instagram. My younger sister had posted a black background with white text. "Some people will cut off their own blood over money. Remember who was there before your paycheck." She didn't tag me, but she didn't need to. My mom commented underneath, "So sad but true. Love you, baby. Some people lose their way." Cousins piled on with family over everything and money can't buy loyalty. They were rewriting the story in real time, turning themselves into victims and me into some cold-hearted villain who'd abandon them for cash and skyline views. None of them mentioned my mom telling me to be grateful I was allowed to sit there. None of them talked about the years of "can you just put it on your card" moments. I realized I'd spent my whole life terrified of being called ungrateful, so I kept overgiving to prove I wasn't. And now that I'd finally said no, they were slapping that exact label on me anyway. That night, instead of crying like I normally would have, I opened my laptop and went back to my banking app. If they wanted to talk about sacrifice and responsibility, fine. We could talk about numbers, the one language that doesn't care about guilt or manipulation. I pulled up 5 full years of transactions and started filtering. Gym and yoga studio, streaming services, Amazon Prime, theme park tickets, concerts, emergency car repairs for my uncle that somehow landed on my card, restaurant bills where I picked up the check because you make more than us, it's no big deal. With every line item I highlighted, I remembered the exact conversation that went with it, the exact moment I'd swallowed my resentment and smiled instead. I copied everything into a spreadsheet, added dates and descriptions, color-coded the categories, and watched the total climb higher and higher until I had to sit back and stare. This wasn't a few generous moments. This was a pattern. Years of being the safety net whenever someone forgot their wallet or couldn't pay till Friday. I drafted an email addressed to my parents and both sisters. The subject line, "Since we're talking about who owes what." In the body, I wrote plainly that I was aware of the things they'd done for me growing up. I was grateful for a roof and food and school. I wasn't pretending I'd raised myself, but the idea that I somehow owed them endless financial support and blind tolerance for the rest of my life was not accurate and not healthy. Then I pasted the spreadsheet total and a breakdown underneath. I didn't call them thieves. I didn't demand they pay it back. I simply wrote, "If you want to keep insisting I'm ungrateful and selfish because I stopped paying, please look at this and ask yourself who has actually been taking care of whom." My hands were shaking when I hit send. My heart pounded like I'd jumped into cold water. But it also felt like dropping a load I'd been carrying for years, a bag I didn't realize had gotten that heavy. My mom's reply came fast, all caps in the subject line, "How dare you?" The body was a wall of text calling my list manipulative and cruel. She accused me of trying to put a price on her love. She ended with, "I am so ashamed of who you have become." Then she blocked me on Facebook. An hour later, Mia sent me another screenshot. My mom had posted a generic family quote image, "Family is forever even when some members forget," with a long caption about staying strong during these trying times. People wrote, "You're such a good mom," and "Don't let anyone tear your family apart," not knowing they were cheering for someone who'd weaponized the word grateful against her own child at the dinner table. I lay in bed that night, angry, but strangely clear. They were invested in this version of me, the difficult, ungrateful daughter who owed them everything. The only thing I could control was what I gave them access to: my money, my time, my energy, my silence. And as their comforts shut off one by one, their tone changed. The passive-aggressive posts became fewer. The calls became frantic. The guilt trips turned into actual panic. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, I was in my apartment on a Saturday afternoon when the buzzer rang. I thought it was a delivery, but I hadn't ordered anything. Then my phone lit up with my dad's name. I let it go to voicemail. My mom started calling. The buzzer went off again, longer this time, like someone had leaned on it. Through the intercom, I heard my mom's voice echoing up from the lobby, loud and shrill. "Lauren, we know you're home. Buzz us in." A few minutes later, they appeared outside my door, clearly having sweet-talked some tenant into letting them into the building. My mom held a shiny red gift bag with tissue paper bursting out of it. My dad had smaller bags hooked around his wrist. My Uncle Chuck stood behind them, smirking. My mom knocked lightly. "Lauren, honey, open up. We brought you something. We just want to talk." I moved closer, but didn't unlock the door. "I don't want to talk right now. You need to leave." The fake sweetness cracked instantly. She knocked harder. "We drove 4 hours to be here. The least you can do is open the door and speak to your own parents." My dad chimed in. "This is ridiculous. We're not doing this through a door. Open it." "No," I said. "You don't get to humiliate me, mock me, and then show up with gift bags like that fixes anything." The knocking turned into pounding. My mom's voice rose. "Do you hear yourself? This is what that city has done to you. You cancel things without warning, send that disgusting email, and now you can't even look at us." "We brought you presents," she added. "We're trying. This is what you wanted, right? Attention?" I didn't move. "I didn't want gifts. I wanted an apology. You never even said sorry for what you said to me, for laughing at me in front of everyone." There was a beat of silence. Then my mom snapped. "Oh my God, are you still on about that? It was a joke. Normal people can take a joke." That was when I knew there was nothing for me on the other side of that door. Not yet, not like this. I texted my mom, "You have 10 minutes to leave or I'm calling building security." After 20 minutes of knocking, crying, and my dad muttering that I was insane, they finally left. But they'd be back. A few days before Christmas, I came home with groceries and saw their car parked outside. My stomach dropped. When I turned onto my floor, my mom, my dad, and my Uncle Chuck were standing outside my door like a blockade. "There she is," my mom said. "Do you feel powerful now, calling security on your own parents?" My uncle leaned against the wall. "You think these neighbors care about you more than we do? Blood is blood. You don't just cancel that. Blood isn't a free pass. It doesn't give you the right to corner me in my own hallway." My dad stepped closer until my back hit my own door. His voice dropped low. "Here's what's going to happen. You're packing a bag. You're coming home with us for Christmas. This stunt ends now." My hands shook, but I got the words out. "No, I'm not going anywhere with you. You are harassing me." My mom slapped her hand against the door right next to my head. The crack made me flinch. "Harassing?" she hissed. "We gave you life. You owe us respect. You owe us more than this." My uncle saw me flinch and smiled. He put his hand on my shoulder and shoved, just enough to move me away from the lock. It wasn't a punch, but it was a message. Something in me went very still. I knocked his hand away. "Do not touch me again." From down the hall, my neighbor's voice cut through. "I'm calling the police. This is the second time you've done this. I'm recording all of it." Minutes later, 2 officers walked down the hall. They took in the scene, spoke with my neighbor, watched the clip of my uncle grabbing my shoulder. The officer turned to my family. "You need to leave the property now. This is harassment. If you come back, she can pursue a restraining order and charges." They wrote my uncle a citation while he stood there, red-faced. Watching that man, who'd laughed at me my entire life, stare at the ground while someone in authority told him he was the problem did something to me. For once, I wasn't the one being shamed. In the weeks after Christmas, the silence from my family felt unreal. I kept waiting for another explosion, another surprise visit, another guilt-soaked text, but nothing came. No Merry Christmas, no Happy New Year, not even a passive-aggressive quote with my name implied between the lines. At first, it felt like standing in a room right after a fire alarm cuts off, my body still braced for noise that wasn't there. Slowly, it started to feel like something else. Space. Through cousins and mutual friends, I heard what was happening back home. My mom had to follow up after that ER visit. Her blood pressure had spiked during the confrontation. Her doctor told her straight that if she didn't manage her stress, she was asking for serious problems. Without my money quietly covering extras, she had to cut back on the gym and the social activities she used to brag about. She asked a younger coworker to help her figure out how autopay actually worked. My dad had to call the streaming companies himself, sit on hold, reset passwords, and for once figure things out without saying, "Ask Lauren." He complained loudly about the hospital bill and my uncle's citation, but this time he had no one to dump those costs onto. My uncle's funny guy image took a hit too. People at his bar and golf club had heard about the video, him grabbing my shoulder, the cops writing his name on a citation. It's hard to play the charming uncle when everyone knows you're the guy who got police called on him by his own niece. My sisters went quieter online, fewer concert selfies and impulse trips, more posts about extra shifts and grinding for goals. When I stepped back as their invisible safety net, they had to stand on their own feet. That was the thing that clicked for me. My boundary didn't just make me grow up, it forced all of us to. Once the adrenaline faded, I crashed a little. With no new drama to distract me, the old stuff floated up. The jokes that weren't really jokes. The times I'd paid the bill and swallowed my resentment. The years I believed keeping the peace was my job. I finally booked a therapist instead of just talking about it. In our first session, she asked, "When did you learn that your role in the family was to fix everything?" I didn't have a neat answer, but the question sat with me. I also found an online support group full of people with stories that sounded uncomfortably familiar. Parents who weaponized guilt, relatives who used family as a leash, siblings who only reached out when they needed something. Reading their words, I saw phrases I'd never let myself use for my own situation: manipulation, emotional abuse, financial exploitation. It didn't change what had happened, but it changed how I judged myself for finally walking away. Months later, my mom sent a short email, no subject line, just, "I'm sorry things got so bad between us. I don't agree with how you've handled everything, but I miss you. I hope you're okay." It wasn't the apology I wanted, but it was something. I didn't respond right away. When I did, I kept it simple. I told her I was okay, that I hoped she was taking her health seriously, and that if we ever talked again, it would have to be different. No yelling, no guilt, no pretending Thanksgiving was just a joke. I said I was open to a conversation someday, preferably with a therapist present, but I would not go back to paying for everything and being grateful to sit there. Hitting send didn't feel like reopening the door. It felt like locking the old version of us and leaving only a small, guarded window. I don't know exactly what will happen with my family in the long run. Maybe we'll build something smaller and healthier. Maybe we'll stay low contact forever. What I do know is this: for the first time, my peace doesn't depend on their moods. I pay my own bills for me. I spend holidays with people who don't turn me into a punchline and call it love. I no longer measure my worth by how useful I am to the people who raised me. If there's any lesson in this, it's that family is not a free pass to disrespect you. Love without respect is just control dressed up as concern. Boundaries aren't betrayal, they're self-respect in action. And sometimes the most satisfying thing isn't slamming a door, it's walking away, letting people finally feel the consequences of their own behavior, and building a life where you're not grateful just to be allowed in the room, but genuinely glad to stand on your own. I copied everything into a spreadsheet, added dates and descriptions, color-coded the categories, and watched the total climb higher and higher, until I had to sit back and stare. This wasn't a few generous moments. This was a pattern. Years of being the safety net whenever someone forgot their wallet or couldn't pay till Friday. I drafted an email addressed to my parents and both sisters. The subject line, "Since we're talking about who owes what." In the body, I wrote plainly that I was aware of the things they'd done for me growing up. I was grateful for a roof and food and school. I wasn't pretending I'd raised myself, but the idea that I somehow owed them endless financial support and blind tolerance for the rest of my life was not accurate and not healthy. Then I pasted the spreadsheet total and a breakdown underneath. I didn't call them thieves. I didn't demand they pay it back. I simply wrote, "If you want to keep insisting I'm ungrateful and selfish because I stopped paying, please look at this and ask yourself who has actually been taking care of whom." My hands were shaking when I hit send. My heart pounded like I'd jumped into cold water. But it also felt like dropping a load I'd been carrying for years, a bag I didn't realize had gotten that heavy. My mom's reply came fast, all caps in the subject line, "How dare you?" The body was a wall of text calling my list manipulative and cruel. She accused me of trying to put a price on her love. She ended with, "I am so ashamed of who you have become." Then she blocked me on Facebook. An hour later, Mia sent me another screenshot. My mom had posted a generic family quote image, "Family is forever even when some members forget," with a long caption about staying strong during these trying times. People wrote, "You're such a good mom," and "Don't let anyone tear your family apart." not knowing they were cheering for someone who'd weaponized the word grateful against her own child at the dinner table. I lay in bed that night, angry, but strangely clear. They were invested in this version of me, the difficult, ungrateful daughter who owed them everything. The only thing I could control was what I gave them access to: my money, my time, my energy, my silence. And as their comforts shut off one by one, their tone changed. The passive-aggressive posts became fewer. The calls became frantic. The guilt trips turned into actual panic. So that's my story. The girl who was told to be grateful she could sit there finally learned that some tables aren't worth sitting at. If this hit home, leave a like. It helps more people find this video. People who might be sitting at that same table right now, wondering if they're allowed to leave. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose your peace over your family's approval? I read every single one, and your story might help someone else feel less alone. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit subscribe and the bell, because every week we share stories about people who stopped playing the role their family wrote for them. Remember, family is not a free pass to disrespect you. Boundaries aren't betrayal, and sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply walk away. You are not ungrateful for wanting to be treated like a human being. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.